3, 2, 1. The Indiana Fever need to be honest with us, and they need to be honest with themselves. Caitlin Clark is probably not coming back this WNBA season. So why all the smoke screens? Let's explain. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Andrew Hobner from No Cap Space WBB. Happy to be with you. Happy you are here with us this Tuesday afternoon. Leave it to the Indiana Fever to give us something to consistently and regularly talk about. And the subject today is Caitlin Clark. Before we get into it, a big shout out to our friends at Home Field. Use code NOCAP15 to get 15% off your first Home Field purchase. They do the best basketball and football college merch in the game. Great material, great stuff. You can find our women's basketball collection on homefieldapparel.com. No Cap Space WBB collection, all of their women's basketball merch compiled into a nice collection for you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Indiana Fever. And we will start with Chloe Peterson, who, if you don't follow her on Twitter, you absolutely should. She is the Indiana University women's basketball beat reporter for the Indiana Star, as well as the Indiana Fever beat reporter for the Indianapolis Star. And first of all, a huge shout out to the Indy Star and all the other publications that are creating beat reporters for WNBA. This is a really cool thing. It's something we need a little bit more of. And it's something that I've always talked about from a media side is like a missing middle with women's basketball and women's sports coverage. Is like we don't have the trusted beat reporters that men's sports do. We're starting to see those now. And that's why people like Chloe are very important, because this is the function of a beat reporter, to be there every day and tell you what it is that they see. Caitlin Clark running with the Fever backups in full court 5-on-0 this morning. And the 5-on-0 is important because of what Steph White tells her and the assembled press. Quote, Caitlin Clark has not done any practices with contact, Steph White said, on if she's coming back in the regular season. White said, quote, that's the hope. I think that's the long-term viewpoint of her health and wellness is the most important thing. It's time. It's time to give up the goose. It is time to be honest and just say she's not coming back this year, guys. It's okay. And there's two reasons why the Indiana Fever is doing it. The first reason is a competitive advantage. This is, and you see it a lot in college football, coaches that are cagey about quarterback injuries or any injuries for that matter. I covered the University of Oregon for a long time. Had more than a few back and forths with Mario Cristobal in the midweek scrums about what's the health on this player. Oh, maybe. It's like, that's not what I heard. And then they get mad at you. That's kind of the situation here. Are you really giving anything up? No, but this is like a stupid coach thing that is basically, if we can force teams to game plan for the possibility of seeing Caitlin, it can potentially take away what we are going to see from them in terms of their scheme and strategy. The thought process generally is, if a team has to think about Caitlin, then that's 1 minute of thought that they are not giving to the roster without Caitlin, right? I don't think there's any team in the WNBA, at least with 4 or 5 games left in the regular season, 9 total days until we hit the playoffs. I don't really think there's a scenario in which like any team is game planning on the assumption that Caitlin Clark is going to be back into the lineup. It doesn't happen. It's not needed. It's not necessary. And teams aren't stupid. This isn't college. You're not going to catch a coach sleeping. Maybe you'll catch coaches that aren't great coaches, but you're not going to catch a coach who's like, maybe Caitlin Clark comes back this week. No, you're not going to get that. They know the jig. As we've said before, this is a groin injury. It's one of the most finicky injuries in the sport. You can injure one groin, and then by virtue of having to put more weight and pressure on the other groin, you run the risk of injuring that groin. Caitlin Clark has 2 injured groins, allegedly picked up an ankle injury, which had its own set of weird reporting around it. She's just done. She's done for the regular season at the very least. And I think it's okay to say that. If Indiana wants to kick the can down the road and still leave the possibility of her coming back into the playoffs open-ended, I think you can do that. But I just don't understand why you are trying to create this kind of gamesmanship with opposing teams when everyone kind of knows what's happening here. I mean, we're 9 days from the end of the regular season, and she's just doing 5-on-0 with no contact. I mean, you don't have to be a mechanical engineer or a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together on what exactly that means for her and for the Fever. If she can't do it now, why is she going to be able to do it in 2 weeks? And is that even necessary to do in 2 weeks? I mean, this is what Steph White said. They are thinking about her long-term health and wellness. And if that is truly the case, then I really don't understand why we are in a position where we're still kind of lying about it. If health and wellness is the most important thing, then you should probably just say up front, we're not bringing her back. The sad thing is, there's a reason for why. That goes beyond the basketball. You want people to buy the tickets and you don't want people to leave. And this is kind of a WNBA thing. It's an old WNBA fan thing. I think it generally permeates league and team offices. And I don't necessarily, as a guy that's covered women's basketball for a decade and has covered the WNBA for 5 or 6 years now, I don't necessarily see a fault with why the league would think this way, right? But the part of a league in its life cycle where you start to break containment and you get big is you start to get casual fans. And you just kind of have to be okay with the idea that casual fans are now a part of your game. There are people in the NBA and the NFL, Major League Baseball, that if Shohei Ohtani or LeBron James or Patrick Mahomes isn't playing that week, there are people that will sell their tickets, that will not go to the game because they don't get to see the biggest star. And that's okay. Is it my type of fandom? No. I don't necessarily subscribe to that kind of fandom. I'm much more of a team-oriented dude in terms of what I like to watch. I also like to watch the games. I am not gravitating towards a star, even though I am captivated by them. But if that's your style of watching the games, then that's okay. But you have to be okay, if you're the Indiana Fever, with the idea that if you say Caitlin Clark is done for the year, you're going to bleed some tickets. You're going to bleed some merch. You're going to bleed some gate. And I don't necessarily love the idea of keeping your fan base in the dark because you're afraid of that concept. Now, on the broader spectrum, if we think about this strategically from a communications and marketing standpoint, I get why you wouldn't. Because while the discussion about ratings and impact with Caitlin off the floor has percolated slightly in certain places of the internet, the idea of Caitlin is left and the masses have gone with her is not necessarily a daily front page piece of news in the media ecosystem right now. And I understand that partially that's a function of there being a new national calamity every single day. We're in the NFL season, that's getting started. College football is back. To be honest, if there was ever a time to bury it, it's now. But you don't want, if you're the WNBA, if you're the Indiana Fever, you don't want a creation here that allows broader media discussion to center around Caitlin Clark and the idea that business is bad when Caitlin isn't there. Is business worse when she's not on the floor? Yes. We're not stupid here. There's an idea of how the world should be and how the world is. There is a world that I think should be, but I know what the reality of the situation is in our day-to-day lives. And the reality of our situation in the day-to-day life of the WNBA is that when Caitlin Clark is on the floor, more people watch, more people tune in, more people patronize, more people make money, right? So I don't think that is necessarily something that you have to ignore or have to just kind of hand wave away. But if you're the WNBA or the Indiana Fever and you don't want this to be a constant, source of discussion, a constant cudgel that gets, you beat over the head, I don't blame you for maybe not wanting to play into it. I don't think that the Indiana Fever necessarily care about that to that degree, because ultimately they're a money-making venture. And I think cynically it is 25 to 30% Steph White gamesmanship, 65 to 70% the Fever just don't want to tell fans that she's done for the season. And how much you want to bet. I'm gonna stake a claim on this now. See how hot or cold this take is, in a few days. Come back to it on the 11th. When they do, if they do, because they're still in a race for the playoffs and for seedings, and you can check our last video to see what the scenarios are. Indiana could still theoretically be bounced out of the playoffs. It would take a lot, but they still could theoretically not be in the playoffs. But regardless of how it goes, how much you want to bet they shut Caitlin Clark down once we get to the playoffs, depending on the seeding. I just, a few weeks back, I said that maybe you want to like consider keeping her if you end up in a situation where you feel that you can contend for a championship, but this team is just too injured. Even with her back, Odyssey Sims becomes your backup point guard, but you're still out Sophie, you're still out Aerie, you're still out Colson. You've got a bunch of other players that are kind of limping along here. If you really feel that the ceiling of this team, even absent those three guards, is enough, that Caitlin returning 80% or better can keep you in championship contention or a deep playoff run, then maybe, they are really trying to run the clock out to 0-0-0-0 to see if she is ready or if she is not. And if that is the case, it's a hell of a gamble to be making. But personally, I just can't see a world in which she comes back. And I think it's okay. Nobody was necessarily expecting you to be a championship team this year. I think there was a lot of hype at the beginning of the year. I think beating the piss out of the Chicago Sky in the opening game of the season when everybody thought Chicago would be better than they were fooled a lot of us into thinking like, okay, maybe Indiana is a championship team. We saw them nearly beat New York in Cambridge and thought, okay, maybe they're a championship team. We saw them beat a shorthanded Minnesota Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup. They thought, okay, maybe they're a championship team. And as much as I want to believe and buy in on them, because when they're good, man, they're really, really good. I think they can still be a year away. I don't think you need to rush the window with Caitlin. Caitlin is a singular star to the point that every year is a championship window, but you're also thinking about a player that can realistically have a window that is 10 to 12 years long. You don't need to push now. You don't need to be impatient. So I think that Indiana has practical and pragmatic reasons on the floor and off the floor for why they don't want to explicitly say that she's done. But I think the writing is on the wall. She seems done. And it's okay if she's done, because I want the longevity of Caitlin Clark. I want Caitlin Clark to show, do the showcase in the spotlight and hit logo threes and, hit AB with a back, behind the back pass off a PNR. Like, I want her to talk shit to people and talk shit to refs and hype up. I want her to do all that shit for the next decade of this league. I do not and would hate to see it stop because it got rushed. And that is the hope with Indiana, is that they're doing the right things by their superstar and they are making a concerted effort to keeping her healthy in the long term. And sometimes what that also takes is looking at your player who is an extreme competitor and maybe the one saying, don't count me out, and sitting them down and saying, we got to do this for your own good. I'm really interested to see how the next 4 days plays out, or 4 games plays out, the next 9 days, because we're at the end of the year and they're still slow playing this. What does that mean come playoff time? I'm very, very curious. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you think Caitlin Clark is done, if you think she's going to come back for the year, be sure to like, to share, to subscribe. Check us out on nocapspacewbb.com. Consider signing up for the Ball Knowers tier. It's $10 a month or $8 a month if you sign up for the full year immediately. And it gets you access to all of our content everywhere you get it. From our videos, special podcasts, mailbags, chat features, features on players, all of the things that you need to be a better basketball fan. We have it for you. And just hang with us. Be a part of our coverage and continue to be a part of our group here. We're always going to make sure that we have something new for you to be interested in as well. That's all the time we got. Ball Up Top is coming on Wednesday. And until then, we'll see you all very, very soon.